why am I okay with this?
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized that was peace.
We're just going to share a little bit about our journeys. Like, how did we get from point A to where we are right now? Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Grief Rewritten. I'm LaSandra Hutchinson, the founder of Grace and Grief. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, guys, what are you waiting on? Be sure to subscribe so that you get all of the notifications. This is my girl, Alexis.
Hi, guys. Like LaSandra said, my name is Alexis, founder of Becoming All She. I'm really glad that you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to both channels because we both put out really great content. And we are both here to help walk you through your widowhood journey. We are right in the thick of it too. So thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe because this helps push out this content to other widows just like us who may need it. So that would really help us. So thank you.
Absolutely. So I hope you guys caught the last video. We had an introduction video to this series, and the series is called Grief Rewritten. Alexis and I are both widows and just have been, we met last year. If you didn't catch the first video, go back and watch that one. But yeah, we met last year and we wanted to partner together to just create some content that really uplift the widow. As Alexis said in the last video, we can get stuck. People can really find themselves stuck and really feel a lot of hopelessness, a lot of stress, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety going through the grief process after the loss of a spouse. And so we wanted to just draw from our own experiences and even bring on guests that we can interview to really shed light on how we did it, how other widows have walked this out well, and just add to our content online and produce some really powerful content for you. So today we're going to talk a little bit about heartbreak. We're just going to share a little bit about our journeys. Like, how did we get from point A to where we are right now? Alexis, if you could just talk about, I know your husband passed in an accident, which I know that just the tragedy of all of that. If you could just kind of share and take us through maybe some of the highlights and the lowlights, I guess we could say, right, of your journey.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, LaSandra, because there are highlights.
There are
a lot of lowlights, but there are highlights. And I think that's part of the grief journey. It's not linear. So, there'll be times where you're angry or bargaining or depressed. And then there's other times where it's like, okay, I think I'm going to be okay. I'm ready to rebuild. You start having these thoughts and it goes up and down, and so my husband, his name was Sterling. I'm going to try not to cry because I'm definitely not wearing waterproof mascara. But this is just like the truth of what it is. It's been almost 3 years and I still it still pulls on me. It's still heartbreaking, But yeah, so Sterling and I were married for 3 years. He actually passed 3 days before our 3-year anniversary. It was really, when I look back on it, you can't tell me God's hand wasn't on it because there were just so many signs and symbols. But nevertheless, so Sterling was involved in a car accident when he was driving from our home in South Florida to his hometown of Atlanta. And so somewhere in Southern Georgia, about an hour out. Well, I'm not good with geography, so let me not say that. About an hour out of Atlanta in a town called Macon, he had an accident and was airlifted and taken to the hospital where he suffered a traumatic brain injury. And I'll spare y'all the details. You can find more in my grief journey video that's linked here on my channel. I will post it probably down in the description box. But basically, he was in ICU for 3 months, and we were waiting and praying and waiting to see if something would change. But he went without oxygen for about 22 minutes. And so there was just way too much damage to the brain. And we had end of life conversations prior to the accident. So I was very well aware of what his desires were in terms of end of life care. And so I was traveling back and forth from Florida to Georgia for those 3 months. My son was 3 years old at the time. So I was caretaker, nurse, admin 3 days a week, and then mommy and work. I was still working. So it was a lot. It was so much happening during those 3 months. And finally, the doctors were like, we need you to make a decision. He cannot stay in ICU any longer. And because I knew his desires, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm surrendering. I'm trusting that if you can do a miracle here, you can do it in hospice. But I know that us intervening and prolonging his life when he's not getting better is not what he wants and not what you have for him, because I believe in the promise of heaven and eternal life. And Sterling he loved God and had a relationship. And so there was no doubt in my mind. It was just the reckoning of like, this is really happening and I have to let go. And not knowing what happened. And so Sterling passed on May 3rd. And the number 3 months after his accident. August 3rd, which was 3 days before our 3-year anniversary. Wow. And to be honest, it was weird. Like when I got the call, I went to visit him. I got to it was a mess, but I had to drive to the hospice facility because they told me it's time. He passed an hour after I left because we got there at like 1:00 in the morning. My son was with me. I got in the bed with him. I said my final goodbyes and I knew I had to take my son home. I had to take him to our Airbnb. And then I got the call from the facility an hour later that he was gone.
Wow.
And I remember a sense of relief. And I felt guilty for that. I felt like, why am I okay with this? Mm-hmm. But then I realized that was peace.
Wow.
That was peace. And from there, I think my defense mechanism, and I talk about this in my video, was I'm going to act like, not that it didn't happen, but like it's happened and it's done. Like the chapter is open and closed. Yeah. And we know that that's not it. It never closes. It never closes. Yeah. And so for a year, I went on this path of this like rampage of I'm Superwoman. I'm going to take care of my son. I don't need anybody's help. I got this. I'm good. Yeah. And on the surface, and I don't know, I can't say it looked like that because I like cut off all my hair. I lost like 30 pounds, but in my mind, I thought I was good. I went back to work 3 months later. Like I was like, I'm good. And my coworkers at the time at that job, would shout out to them because they were so supportive. I don't work there anymore, but they were really great to me and to my family. And they're like, are you sure you're ready to come back? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. And I was traveling. I mean, it was really, looking back at it, I was out of my mind with grief and not dealing with it. And so I got really sick. I was like, my mental health suffered. I was an insomniac. I was anxious. If I didn't take sleep aids, I would be up for 36 to 48 hours at a time. It was that bad. I had suicidal ideation where, because I was dealing with so much in my marriage and not having that closure, I was just like, I don't want to be here. Yeah. But I knew I couldn't leave my son. Yeah. He was like my saving grace, because when I was like, I don't have anything to live for, I would be reminded of him. And so, after about a year of that, I finally reckoned with like, if I don't do something, I'm not going to make it. Like literally, I'm going to have a heart attack. Something's going to happen. Like, I felt it, and I felt the spirit telling me that like, you need to do something. Yeah. And, So my cousin, which shout out to her, my best friend, love her to death. Shout out to T. She was like, why don't you come out to Denver? Because we were still living in Miami at the time. Why don't you come out to Denver? Just hang out for the weekend, bring Mason with you. And a 3-day trip turned into a week-long trip. And LaSandra, in that week, I didn't have to take my sleep aids, not once. Okay. And there was a peace. And this was like in the midst of COVID too. Yeah, like, let's not forget about that. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was flying back home to Miami. It was a Sunday. The plane hit the runway at MIA, and the Lord said so gently, but loudly, yeah, you can't stay here. Your healing isn't going to happen here. Wow. The next day I quit my job. Well, I gave my notice. I didn't just do it like that. I gave my notice. Yeah. And 3 weeks later, I was moving to Denver. And it has been an incredible healing journey since then. And not just healing, but restoration. Like God bringing back tenfold everything that I've lost. And that has been, there's been such an awakening and just kind of seeing how through the different stages of grief that I had to go through with, just the shock of the accident. Yeah. There were times where I'm like, is this happening? Is this my life? Like the denial of it. Yeah. And then just kind of moving in and out of the different feelings of like pain and anger and bargaining. And then finally getting into a place where I'm like, I'm giving myself permission to rebuild, to reconstruct this new chapter of my life. It's been incredible. Yeah. honestly, it has been. Wow. And I'm just so grateful because what has happened. Oh, there's my dog. What has happened is God has brought in community. Like that has been a really pivotal, and that was where the shift happened. Like my cousin came in and redirected me. And then when I got to Denver, I got plugged in, and then I met you and the rest of the group when I was here in Denver. And so, community and that support, I just see God's hand in it and how he sent different people into my life to guide me and lead me.
Because I feel like, and I remember being there, people want to know what was your timeline off it. And I was the same way. So you said for a year, you were trying to handle everything on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
After the year, that was your turning point, right? Yeah. Everything you started when you moved to Denver. Yeah. And now it's been 2 years since you've been there, right?
Yeah, just about in September, it will be 2 years that I've been here in Denver.
It's been a year and a half.
And in August will be 3 years since Sterling passed. And then September will be 2 years that I've been in Denver.
You've been in Denver. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you, in terms of like your healing journey, I know being there with your cousin, and you said finding community. What were the other key factors that allows you to start to break through?
I think each and every single one of us, I don't know if it's spelled out in the stages of grief, but I think surrender is
my goodness,
really a key fact, especially as Christian widows. I can't speak that for everyone, I know, but I know as a Christian. And the thing is, I think it's really important to define surrender. I can't claim this definition as my own, but I'm going to say it. I heard it said by a friend of mine, surrender is not I'm useless. Surrender is giving God what you have so he can make use of it. And for me, what I had to give was heartbreak, was uncertainty, pain. That's what I have, God. That's the truth. That's what I have. And saying, I don't want to hold on to this anymore because it's making me sick. Yeah. It's poison. And so, God, I'm going to hand this over to you. Yeah. Do with it what you will. That is surrender to me.
Wow.
And when you do that, I believe God honors that.
Yeah.
And God takes that and says, let me fix that for you. Let me make that beautiful because I love you and because I care. And because that is my promise to you that I will do that. And so it was a slow process because, again, in terms of faith, when you add the faith component, there's that age-old question of like, why do bad things have to happen? Why do people have to die? And when we look at it from the common sense of man, it deteriorates the character of God. So what would make sense to us in our limited understanding as human beings, as man, God can do exceedingly and abundantly beyond what we can comprehend. And it's like the beauty that has come out of the loss of my husband. I'm a completely different person today.
Yeah.
Because I loved and lost. That I wouldn't be this person today if that didn't happen. And knowing at the same time that while this was a tragedy, like my husband is celebrating in a mansion right now. And hopefully not anytime soon, I will be there with him, like I will see him again. And it's leaning into that truth that my faith gives me, standing on that truth. So surrender, faith, leaning into those promises.
Yeah.
And I think just acknowledging what's happening, like I mentioned earlier, for me, it was like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not doing it.
But how many people are doing that?
Yeah.
Men and women, right? Not just widows, but all kinds of grief. How many people are avoiding dealing with the issues and the pain and the heartache of grief? Right. So I honestly, I just appreciate you sharing that part of it, because I feel like so many people are kind of just running around in denial, or running around like they have to be a super Christian or super mom or super dad, and not, or running around telling themselves, I'm fine, I got it. But they're not okay.
Right.
And it seems like too, from your story too, sometimes it takes rock bottom.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, culture is kind of, it shifts, right? Whether it's generationally every few years. And so we've come into this season of like self-care, and I love it, but I think there's a danger in it, in that the self-care piece, I think the worldly mantra is like, do you for you. And it's like, nah, we need you to do you because we need you. We need your contributions. We need you to serve. Like your self-care in terms of your healing process, your healing journey doesn't end with you. Like I'm still in the healing process, but I have come to a place where I recognize the Spirit leading me and saying, no, like we need you to, I think you shared this in our first video, we need you to reach back. You have sisters coming up behind you that have experienced or are experiencing the same loss that you did 3 years ago. You need to help bring them out of the fold too.